Since their origin, video games have evolved into a highly immersive experience. Engaging nearly all the player's senses, today's games go above and beyond to create a unique, deep experience of immersion. But unlike this effort to dazzle players with ultra-defined graphics and realism, is it possible that some older games achieve the goal in a more sophisticated manner without trying as hard? We think so, especially the Nancy Drew games. Even with their limited design, these games have always immersed players right into the mystery with Nancy. So today, we're discussing the big picture of Nancy Drew game immersion and diving into all the detailed ways her interactive pulls us in. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of your favorite podcast. Stay tuned for deep dives. My name is Carter, and I'm with my lovely co-host Tori, and we are diving into one of my favorite topics today, which is Nancy Drew game immersion.
I have been excited about this one for a while because I was just like, I just know Carter, like this is Carter's time to shine.
Well, this was actually a topic that I wanted to make into a YouTube video, Tori. And I really wanted to, make one of my like deep dive Nancy Drew videos, but it just never happened. So I feel like the YouTube script and like my thoughts and ideas have just been circling around in my filing cabinets. And it's time, it's time to empty spring cleaning, fall cleaning, whatever in my brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we've
Making it
honestly,
happen.
yeah, we're making it happen. And we've put together some really, really great thoughts on paper for you guys today that is going to be so great for our conversation. But I guess like just before starting off in this vein, Tori, how do you feel about the Nancy Drew games as far as their immersion goes?
I mean, in general, I would say overall, I have felt very like immersed into the experience. Like the spooky games, I
Mm-hmm.
have felt like I am there being terrified. And I think always the fact that they've always stuck to that formula of like first person Nancy Drew,
Yeah.
like you are the player. Like I mean, I and the music, we had a whole 3 episodes worth of music talk. Like there's just so many things that always make me feel like each mystery is a distinct, unique, like immersive experience into
Yeah.
a special mystery, a special location. Yeah. And it was really fun to think through the particulars for this and come to like oh okay, like yeah, this like these things, like not just a nebula, like oh I feel immersed right now, but like thinking about like these specific like details and principles make me feel immersed, like I
Yeah.
am Nancy Drew and
Yeah.
I am solving a mystery.
Oh my gosh, yes. That's exactly how I feel. And also too, I feel like when I do play a Nancy Drew game, I am immersed all over again. Like the games continue to immerse me into their world of wherever she's solving her mystery. So I
Yeah.
love that replayability is still there for immersion. But just kind of like starting off, I had mentioned, that and you could agree with me because we've definitely played some games like this, but video games now today are insanely immersive. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
the graphics are just so real. And, you can look at these really high def, ultra graphic video games and think, oh, wow, the video games back then must have not been as immersive. But, today, what we're looking at here is what makes a good immersive Nancy Drew game. And we're going to talk about those qualities. But I am in the camp that in my onion camp that the Nancy Drew games have provided this kind of higher sophisticated manner of immersion without really having to try very hard, that I think makes them more charming even though they're older, that maybe new video games are trying really, really hard to immerse their player into. I think the Nancy Drew games actually do a better job of in the most simplest ways, but are just more sophisticated. And so I'm excited that we're like mapping this out and talking about how they do that. I think it's going to be really exciting. I actually put in this like little tidbit of information because this was what I meant to do um, in the notes and just forgot to actually put the picture. There's at the very start of video game history, which was like the early 50s, which I was like, what? They had video
Oh,
games there? Um, I think the very first one may be credited as Space War, but Tennis for Two was also one of them. And I'll put the picture up, but it's literally this game where you could shoot a ball back and forth, like Tennis for Two. Like that's what it was. And that was like the first technical like interactive video game between two people. And I thought, oh my gosh, her first interactive video game, I was like, I must mention this and think about how video games have come from this to that. That's
now
just
you
really
got me
interesting.
suddenly. Not to derail this, but when
Oh
we're
yeah.
done recording this, I gotta check my phone camera roll because you remember that
Oh yes.
museum I went to with the
Yes.
Nancy Drew exhibit.
Yes.
I'm suddenly having that. My sister and I played. Had it on a big TV, and now it was some sort of back and forth, and it was old.
Oh, I bet you it
They
was
had it set up
that.
on a retro TV, and now you have me wondering if that was what we played.
Oh,
So,
I bet you it was that. Yeah,
man,
he made it at like MIT, I think, is what I remember reading. But
well,
it was interesting though to read about like that history of like this is where it started. Then we got more into like arcade type games like Pac-Man and like the little space space
uh-huh.
outer space shooting thing, and then we developed more like analog at home on your TV, and then we got to
Yeah.
computer games, and that's kind of like the era that we're at right now is the computer game era with Nancy Drew games. And so starting with our very first overlying topic, which is the environments of the Nancy Drew games.
Yeah. And I feel like, I guess in my mind, me, this feels like this is the one that really defines the whole thing because we tend to be very visual
Yeah,
people. So it's, what the eye sees is always going to be the thing that captures the attention first. So,
absolutely.
yes, this is a big important area.
It absolutely is. And for me, this is a really important one. This very first point that falls under environments because, you know, in the early games, Nancy Drew's spaces were very cluttered and lived in. And that's like our very first point under environments is that they are cluttered and lived in spaces. And then we get to when you look at like the very, very first few games versus Midnight in Salem. And Midnight in Salem just literally looks like somebody went through a Sims 3 library and it's just you know what I mean? So
I do. When I saw that comment in the notes, I'm like, you know what? I never would have thought to put it that way, but that's exactly what's going on.
but it's so true
Just,
though.
just throwing things down
I'm thinking of the
and
Perry
putting them
house
there.
specifically. I'm like,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
nothing to explore there, and it
That
just
does not feel like a house that people actually live in.
no,
That's
and it's like staged. It's like a staged house.
yeah, yeah. It really
It's
is.
just it drives me
Ugh.
bonkers. Anyways, so cluttered and lived in spaces. Hit us with the first one, Tori. Just hit us with the first one.
Well, this one is particularly fresh in Carter's mind because he just streamed this game not too long ago. The Stay Tuned for Danger prop room. I mean, oh my word. Talk about the most cluttered Nancy Drew
Ugh,
space
it's like a
like
garage
ever.
sale. It's the
But
best thing
you know,
ever.
it's appropriate. It's a
Yeah,
prop room.
yeah.
People go in and out of there. Anything you might need to film on set is got to be in there.
Hmm.
And Carter, you can talk about specifically like what it was like for you walking in there because I know you haven't played this game a lot, and so you
No,
can talk
yeah.
about your recent streaming experience. But yeah, what has always impressed me is the number of things that they, not just the fact that it looks very realistic, like it's very disorganized. There's not really a whole lot of rhyme or reason to
Yeah.
things being where they are, and it's kind of just a hodgepodge. But I'm just so I find it I think younger me, if I had played Stay Tuned for Danger as a kid, I would have been like, "Oh my word, why is it so hard to find what I'm looking for in here? All this junk." Like, it would have annoyed me. But now as an adult, and I was an adult when I played Stay Tuned for Danger the first time. I was just impressed at the care, like, that they took into, like, putting everything, all these unique trinkets and things on shelves, and there are so many hotspots in that game where there is nothing that you need for the mystery. It is there just so you can see it and feel like, you know what? Yes, there's a lot of stuff you got to comb through in a prop room
Mhm.
before you finally do find what you actually need. So very, very
Exactly.
immersive.
Exactly. No, that's exactly what I was just about to say is that your point of bringing that up, like even as a kid, you would have been like, oh, I'm so annoyed I can't find what I'm looking for, is exactly how I feel like you would feel in a prop room is like, where is
Yeah. So,
everything? This is so
which I
chaotic. I
guess,
can't.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like, so it
meant to feel
really,
that way.
yeah, yeah. And it's
Yeah,
so
that's true.
in itself, the way that it's put together is immersive. Just the fact that it's cluttered and it's just chaotic. And I just feel like that's just but yes, no. Recently playing this game, I'm going around and I'm like, wow, there are seriously so many pockets of areas that you can go pick something up and look at it and put it down. Has nothing to do with the mystery, has nothing to do with the storyline. It's literally just a thing that you can pick up, look at, and put back down. And I often have found when I have played like 90s CD-ROM and that kind of era of video games, they had a lot of like interactive things that you could click on and a sound effect would
Oh,
happen or like
mhm.
a little movement. And I think that the Stay Tuned for Danger prop room possesses that quality where it's a very interactive space where you can pick things up, click on them, they make noise. There's like a spider in there that like crawls around, like
Yeah.
it's a very interactive space. I did make a mention here because I remember when I was going through like old her interactive YouTube videos and interviews, there actually is an interview with one of the game designer people whose responsibility, like one of his sole responsibilities was I am supposed to make props for the prop room. That was his like job. And so I think it fascinates me that there was even a person whose responsibility was to make all of like the assets that are to fill the space up and make it realistic. So like he was talking about like, yeah, I made like the firefighter like hat and the pumpkins and the this, like he was like listing all the gas can, like he was listing all these objects that he had to create. And I'm like, brilliant that you have somebody that's responsible for that, because that just shows how much care was going into it that you would give someone like that's their task. um and I feel like Stay Tuned for Danger, I keep wanting to say Stay Tuned for Deep Dives, Stay Tuned for Danger prop room, that's just such a golden example of a cluttered space with so much purpose. So yeah. But the next one also, um I don't know about you, but Message in a Haunted Mansion, the Golden Gardenia, it has such a unique flavor as far as immersion goes, because it hits so many different like spots for me. Um but as far as the clutteredness of this game, we're talking about a space that's supposed to be under renovations. And so I think it's great because they play off that and they make these spaces feel like they're in the process of being renovated. It
Yeah.
it's real. Um Particularly I made note of the character spaces. You want to go over the character spaces for us and just hit us with the just beauty of their individuality? I mean, it's just so good.
There's Rose
Mm.
she's in the dining room, correct? And she's always sitting at that table, and you can see she's just got papers, bills, schedules, like just letters scattered like hither and yon all over that table, which yes, that's very realistic. I feel like both to like that's how a lot of people like that's what their workspace looks like while they're doing things. To be honest, I relate to Rose. Like my desk very often looks like that. Like
You got
just
a rose
things.
desk right now?
Yeah, scattered everywhere. And then it's like, there's a time to put it in order, but it's like, it's all got to be out right now. And then Abby's room, of
Oh, there's
course.
so much to look
Like
at.
I mean, and it's you learn with I feel like with Abby in particular, you can learn so much about Abby just by you don't even have to talk to her. Just go into her bedroom.
Yes.
Look at the objects, the books, like the things that she has in her room. Like I think of that guitar and that shelf she's got with all the different things on it and what's on her table and even like her like color palette choices like
Yeah.
literal and you do feel like you're going into kind of like an ethereal like
Uh-huh.
spiritual space when you walk into her room, which is very fitting to who she is. And then Charlie, of course, as the workman, he's got his tools kind of scattered all over on that little table. And even, spoiler alert, when you go into Charlie's little hideaway, also the things that he's got scattered all over in there. And then of course Lewis like getting onto his laptop but more so
Lewis.
with Lewis it's when you finally break into the briefcase and you could see obviously there's the things that you can actually physically look at in his briefcase, but even just the things you can see kind of hiding underneath.
Yeah.
And Message in Haunted Mansion, one thing that's really great and really works well with the immersion is that you are actively encouraged and in fact required to like you have to snoop all of their spaces to
Yes.
beat the game. And they have all these little clues. Like I think Rose is the one. Like she's got the mentions. There's stuff about like the insurance and all these things. And of course, Abby. You go and you find that big like, excuse me, she got a whole like camera like equipment set up in here. And Lewis has got the book and just so all these little details. This clutteredness has like not just the fact that it adds to making you feel like these are real people just living life, but these are the little shall we call them the breadcrumbs. We got to keep talking about our
Yes.
breadcrumbs that make people look suspicious.
Yes.
And uh, you made a really good point adding this into the notes. So feel free to say more about this if I don't cover it well enough, but talking about that the snooping like it affects the gameplay like later on
Yes.
because like Nancy will see something. Nancy then gets the opportunity to she might be able to ask because I know like you can ask Charlie about things that you've seen in his space and you can have that whole conversation with Lewis about gumbo food, and you have to, and
Yes.
then you have to like Nancy it's like, oh no. And you actually have to like make sure that you don't give away that you looked at his stuff or it's game over for you, Nancy Drew. And of course it things like it opens up conversations with Bess and George about things you've seen and Nancy adding to her notebook. And um yeah, those are just really like I think that's a really really good point that it does like it makes you feel like I'm trying to think how I want to say this like my like it really does make me as the player feel like whoa like I am snooping. My
Yes.
snooping like
It
it
has actual
matters
consequences.
and it has yes like yes. And I gotta confront people and I gotta not get myself in trouble because
Yes.
like ooh Oh
No,
no, I
yeah,
shouldn't have been looking at that.
and actually, and what nobody in the episode yet at this time knows this because we obviously know what the rest of our notes say. But this example right here plays off a lot of the exact titles and examples of what we're talking about here. Like you've got a cluttered and lived in environment, which we snoop, which then brings upon actual change in the game and affects dialogue and affects second chances. So like
Yeah.
it like almost sweeps across all of the, you know, things that we're mentioning here today. Like that's why I feel like, oh, Message in a Haunted Mansion has a high immersion, like just the flavor that was
Yeah.
added in this game was just more.
Well, and on
Um,
the flip side, it makes me think about which, any one of us, I mean, I don't, there's so many examples we could give of like when you fail to see something during your snooping.
oh yeah.
And so you miss out on a conversation or whatever. And then, like, again, going back to replayability, like, I know we all have had the experience of finding something
Oh
that
yeah.
we never found before. And then suddenly you're like, wait a second, I've never seen this. And then suddenly you can ask someone about it. I'm like, I
Right.
can think
No,
of
exactly.
Curse of Blackmore Manor
Exactly.
was a very shocking one for me in that regard, finding new things.
Exactly. And we also have some other mentions here. Like these are just more of like a quick mention, just because there's so many like, you know, cluttered environments we could like review. But you know, like you've got the dressing rooms and final scene. You can do a full like 360 sweep around the whole room and like hotspot and get close-ups on different things like the clogged sink in the women's dressing room, you know, all the drawers, the characters' belongings. Or M's Emporium. I think there's a character that mentions it's kind of like a
Love it.
museum, you know, and it's very similar to the prop room. It's very cluttered with purpose, and you can look at all these things, touch them. Nancy can react to them, like the worm. So just different stuff like that. You've got Shadow Ranch, really just the whole game. I feel like the spaces are just like, you know, like a museum in itself. You know, the ranch
Yeah.
is very lived in. Um, I made like a little detail where I was like, I just love the fact that there's a folded blanket on the couch and a book on the coffee table. Like somebody sits there at the end of their ranch day and reads a book, you know, by the fire. And those are just small details that make it more lived in and real. Of course,
Mhm.
Mary Yazi's same way as like M's Emporium. It's like you get to just look at all the stuff on the walls and that's hanging. So it's nice. Ooh, do you want to talk about the Hurley train?
Oh, the train. That, oh,
It's such a
I
beautiful
mean, just
train.
just just the detail with, and I'm trying to, am I remembering correctly? I feel like you posted. Did you post about the
I
wallpapers in that
did.
train?
I
That's what it's
did.
like. My brain is pulling at. It's like I swear Carter posted about those
I
wallpapers,
literally
and
went and found Google Images and screenshotted it and like zoomed in all the way to the wallpaper and just made a collage of all the wallpaper because it was so beautiful. Yeah.
yeah, and but also like there's a level of like the immersion because of the historical the decor, just the decor. You don't even have to look at items on the train, just the way it's decorated,
Oh
very
yeah.
very appropriate. Like you get this snapshot of like 19th century life
Yeah.
lived on a train, and as you go from one cart to the next, they each have their own distinct personality, and some of like the clutter is unique to each space. And the one that really always stands out to me is when you go into the room that John Gray uses, because that was Camille's space.
Oh
So like
yeah.
number one, you learn a lot about Camille by what's in that room, but even also the way John has kind of like cluttered up the space with all of his equipment. That really adds to it. And the things, like, of course, like sometimes when you just see these like dolls, and sometimes doll parts like scattered all around the train. um and what is it, the like that special room where like the big final puzzle happens. Like
Oh
I
yeah.
yanking open those drawers and looking at everything that's in there.
Yeah,
Like
it's like you're
yeah,
learning about each specific person by their cart. Like it's
yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah, because like it's Tino. Tino hangs out in Jake's space.
Mhm.
So yeah, and again, like Jake and Camille, you don't get to really know a whole lot about them, um, in terms of like historical, like letters and things that you can read, and
Right.
Charlene can tell you a little bit about each of them, but you can still like again, you can get immersed like into their world and kind of feel, man, what
Mhm.
what must have been like to be the Hurleys
Yeah.
living on a train. So yeah. And then I'm not going to talk about this one cuz
What?
this is your game. Like this is your no, this is your game. I'm not talking about Legend of the Crystal Skull. Like
Oh
I
no. I
I
mean, no, it is just like it's its own little world in itself, going to Zeke's curio shop, when I was streaming it last week for
yeah.
Halloween, I was like, oh, I forgot about how cozy the curio shop is. Like it's its own little cozy sphere, its own world. But it has so many like little objects you can, all the powders that Bess can pick up, and how Bess can tap that, like whatever that thing is and
And if
the
you tap it enough, like
you know um
yeah.
so it's just different things, and like the whole interactive puzzle that you can have, that you have to like put together all the objects. I mean, it's just it's a space meant for looking at all the knickknacks of everything. So it's weird little
Definitely.
shop. Love it.
Well, and even like the little detail which you have also posted about on Instagram of like you
The
study that
mystical
toast.
toast.
And then you get into the back room and you find out not so mystical. There's, shenanigans going on with this here toast.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my gosh, and that's
yeah.
the best detail. Like I hope if you've never seen it before, if you've listening here today, if when you get to finally go back to Lamont's back room, you can see that he has stencils hanging on the wall where he's obviously spray painted these pieces of toast.
Naughty boy.
Yeah, to have like be like, ooh, it's magic. Like the mold grew exactly in the shape of a person. So,
Yeah. Waverly. Those
oh my
girls'
gosh.
dorms. Yes, they're so precisely like arranged to each of their like personalities, their interests, and even like um, they're kind of all like their clutter is different. Like I think about is it well? It's more so like Kareen. Like Kareen, it's more so on her desk. Again,
Mm-hmm.
she's got things like scattered hither and yon on that desk, and Mel, like oh my word, there wow, like just explosion of color and yeah, all the different things that she's got in there. And then I think honestly, I feel like maybe my favorite one has actually always been like Leela and Izzy, because you
Oh
can
yeah.
literally see like
Like the
it feels
divide.
yeah, literally like a dividing line of two, and like the color choices and the objects that they have in the room, and even like they're not cluttered in the same way, so you can kind of see like who's more organized. And then also um again, I will not spoil this one because it's such a big plot twist, but like Rachel's room seems excessively like ordered,
Mm-hmm.
very very clean, and not a whole lot in there. There's a reason for that.
Right. Yeah.
Cuz maybe that's not where she actually spends all of her time, but anyway, yeah.
That's a good point.
No more comment on that. And then you want to talk about Trail of Twister?
Oh my gosh. It's so cozy. Ugh. I know I love the farmhouse, and I love its clutter. Every space has its own particular clutter, but nothing like Scott's office. Scott's office is like just, but you know what though? Doesn't that speak to his character though? His
Yeah.
office is as chaotic as he is. you know, you know, but no, really, like there's just papers
Yep.
everywhere, boxes everywhere, things hanging on the wall, but even the just the age of the house itself, like the walls are not like this perfect just solid color paint, like you've got wallpaper kind of peeled a little bit, like
Mm-hmm.
it's cluttered, it's lived in, it's old, and it shows that. So I love that. And Frosty's basement space that's not together at all, it's just like there's not even like drywall up, you know what I mean? Like it's purposeful, it feels real. Going out to Chase's, you know, where he's working at, like there's so much stuff just everywhere because, well, he's working outside on cars, like yeah, there should be a bunch of stuff everywhere.
Yeah.
So I really like it.
Yeah, and Trail of the Twister also has that unique setup where they give you little nooks and crannies that you could just
Hmm.
randomly look at
The
in
corn.
more detail. Yeah.
The corn
So,
everywhere. Yeah, and also too, just similarly with, you know, the curio shop, M's Emporium, although this one's a lot more like polished and nice. When we end up going to River Heights and Alibi and Ashes, we have Alexi's shop. It's like another space that it's
I
small,
love that
and
shop.
I know it feels so real. Like I have so many spaces back home that literally look and feel just like that shop, you know? But yeah, it is cluttered. It is supposed to be. It's a lot of antiques that you can go around, and you can actually accidentally, one character can break a vase and have a whole like, you know, conversation and thing about it. There's stuff on the shelves. There's even a little game you can play with, and
Mhm.
you know, a newspaper thing that you can read on the wall. A big chest you can open up and find more evidence for these clues. So it's a very, very interactive space, and it feels so cluttered, so real. Like Alexi does spend his time polishing things and like moving things and adding knickknacks, and just like I can just feel that when I go there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and then the last one that we really wanted to draw attention to
ooh, I love
was
this one.
Deadly Device and the technology of tomorrow today, which again, I think in particular you're going to see this the most with Ellie versus Mason. Literally their office spaces are opposite to each other. But then also even when you get into I would also add when you get into Nico's like private study
Mm-hmm.
and all, and again very cluttered, but a testament to like what he was interested in and what he was working on. But more so like Ellie and Mason, that one is really well done because again, Ellie's space feels much more like human. She has a lot more things kind of like just scattered all over the two halves of her office.
Yeah.
Then you go to Mason's side, everything is perfectly arranged and ordered, which also, I think it's Ellie who even makes a comment that basically in the sense that like, you know, Mason's not really honestly like human in a sense, like just the way his mind works and stuff. He's much more like pure like scientist in the way he thinks and lives and of course, then the game gives Nancy the option to be chaotic and torture Mason by let's rearrange all of his stuff. Someone move my things. Someone will pay. So a tale of two office spaces.
Yes. And
Very good
what
one.
you brought up is something that we will definitely come back to later in the notes, because the realness of being able to do something, have a character react, you know, that
Yeah.
what you do does affect and change things. That's super
Yes.
important. So we'll come back to that. That's a very important detail that you brought up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I love that space. Yes.
Mhm.
And then, so that kind of covers like our cluttered and lived in areas for environments. But now we get into the realistic and detailed spaces. Oh my gosh. This is like a huge detail as well, because I feel like Her Interactive, they always do their homework when it comes to whatever game it is that they're like set out to do. Um, and so like just a few examples here at the beginning of like some very accurate ways that they modeled after their real life locations versus the game. This one's always been one of my favorite. This is like the final scene. In the Amateur Sleuth blog, Kalina revealed what their main inspiration was for the theater that's used in the final scene. A lot of people, have shared their like, oh, well, I think it's this theater that's, da, da, da. It was actually the American Conservatory in California. And I'll throw the pictures up so you guys can see. It really does look like the final scene theater. Um, they used more than just this theater for inspiration, but this was their main source of inspiration. I think what's so realistic though is that this theater is supposed to be something that's decrepit and falling apart and old. And so they created this beautiful theater that you can tell was very grand in its day, but then added in those details where it's like, oh, like there is just, things falling apart, or, you know, popcorn that's been left strode everywhere and gum on the bottom of a
Yeah.
seat.
Yeah.
Like that realism that's just there. Like it's not just I placed a theater here and it's all perfect and in shape. That there are things,
Yeah.
even when Nancy peers over the top balcony part, you can see like scattered popcorn at the bottom when she has to reach for that gear. Like that
Yeah.
detail to me is just so perfect. Like it's so real. So always love that one.
Oh, but I
So it's good.
next one on the list. Nope.
Okay, well I'll take this one since
I'm not gonna steal your moment from
no, no, I'll take it since it's my favorite. But you definitely take the other one since that's your baby. Um, Whale World, Whale World, Whale World. I love Whale World,
you.
and just recently when I was joining the making my Nancy Drew like Clue Crew Instagram within the past 5 years, that's actually when I discovered that Whale World's a real place. Had no idea. I think somebody on the Reddit community had shared their pictures and they were like, y'all, I went to the real life Whale World. And I was like, it's real? And I saw the pictures and it's like, it'll blow you away. They have the beautiful stained glass. They have the same thing, just like in Whale World. They'll have the big whale skeleton. I mean, it's almost identical. So it's cool to see her interactive do their homework, study these places, and then put their own spin on it and put it into the game. It just it's real. That's real. So it's beautiful.
I mean, I know we have Shadow Ranch in here. We did already talk about the living room in a different sense. I mean, to be honest, not. I know this is my favorite game. Like, I feel like we addressed a lot of this when we did my episode, so I
Sure.
don't know that I really need to say a whole lot. But again, that feels very realistic, like ranch house
The
to me, like
kitchen.
what I've seen of those kinds of spaces. But then
Yeah.
Blackmore Manor,
Oh my
the
gosh.
level of detail really in every environment in that game. Jane's room, Nancy's bedroom, the conservatory, just
Yes.
the grand entrance foyer, the library. We already talked about details in the Hurley train, Icicle Creek, and
Oh.
actually, I'm gonna go ahead. Um, Maybe I can say more about some of the international locations afterwards, but I'm actually going to throw the talking point back to you because like those games, those like earlier games that we just mentioned, there's a particular artist
Oh
that
yeah.
really made a big contribution to all of that. And I want to throw this back to you because I know you actually did kind of a deep dive, like looking into her work.
Yeah. No, if I when I go back and edit the episode, I'll definitely make sure to include her information. So that way if anyone's listening or watching, you can look her up too. She is phenomenal. I believe you pronounce her name as AU. She was the artist for so many years at Nancy Drew games. Um, she did a huge portion of the early games and for like all the way up until I really want to say I feel like Castle Malloy to Captive Curse, somewhere in that era, she started like fading out. I know she was huge on Dossier
Okay.
games. She did a lot of the art for the Dossier games, but
Oh,
she is the one that's responsible for a lot of those environments that you see and you're like, wow, that's so detailed. It's usually AU. Like when you go to Curse of Blackmore Manor and you're looking at Nancy's room and you're like, wow, the wallpaper, it has like these like stencilings that go across. Like if you really pay attention to the environments, AU. Or if you look at the doorposts and the doorposts like in Icicle Creek Lodge have like a deer weaved into the side of it. It's AU. Like she just knows how to make things like, well, we're gonna take them here and we're gonna bring it up here. Like she just makes an environment so detailed and just beautiful. I can think of like all the wallpaper in the Hurley train. AU. So yeah, look her up. I'll try and see if I can like throw her stuff up. She has a website and you can actually go look at all of her past Nancy Drew work. Um, she's included a lot of screenshots and just behind the scenes images of things that she's made. So it's very cool.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
So, and definitely another area in which her interactive traditionally has been done a good job, like they do their research, is making international locations look like the real thing. Like, however you one feels about Mystery of the Seven Keys, it would be unfair to deny like yeah, they really did capture the look of Prague. The cathedral and the astronomical clock, and in particular, if you really want to kind of see how the realistic immersion happens, there is you can do the optional like photo scavenger hunt that's in Nancy's journal, or literally you have to go stand with Nancy's camera and take a picture, and then the game does something like it literally like it'll transform before your eyes. Then I can't remember how it works. Like it'll show. I can't remember if it's they show you the real image and then you have to go find the rendered image, or if it's the other way. Like you find the rendered image and then the scavenger hunt, like it transforms it into, now here's what the real thing looks like. But it's very like, it was quite impressive to see. And I actually did. I'm hoping we can get into the notes, like kind of like a shot of like the real Prague astronomical clock, like if you're
Oh
standing in front of that
yes.
building versus how it looks in the game. Like, come
I
on,
looked it up and it's like
come on. It
scary
if
accurate.
like come on, we got to give them props
Mm-hmm.
for doing their research designing this game. Then also Shadow at the Water's Edge, and this is one, it kind of would have gone over my head, except I happened to have Gab Smolder's playthrough up one day, and she has a lot of familiarity with Japan. And she was constantly, she's like, this is so realistic. She's like, they must have sent someone to Japan to like actually look at the places, because she was going on and on about how the ryokan, she's like, yeah, that's so accurate. Like, yes, the baskets in the baths and the name board that has the guests' names out in the lobby. Like, I remember she was very impressed with how realistic it was to a legitimate ryokan. And then I also have seen people post before about like Pont Neuf in
Oh yeah, yeah,
France
yeah, yeah.
versus how it is in the game. And again, they did quite a good job like realistically rendering that. And, they changed some little details, but still it's very faithful to the actual environment. But even also, when Her Interactive has done some of these, I would say, I guess maybe more in terms of like outdoorsy, like United States environments. Like people have gone to Moon Lake in actual Pennsylvania. And
Yeah.
yes, like Moon Lake in the game is a very good rendering of what you can see there. River Heights, think really does embody like find any small town in America, and it's going to have buildings that look like the buildings that you can visit in River Heights. Trail the I've seen people praise like who really have a special place in their heart for the Midwest. Like they yeah, they're like Trail the Twister, nailed it. So I think um they really have shown a lot of care in making sure that they get those environments to be faithful to what you would see if you actually visited those locations in real life.
Yeah.
And then one other thing kind of under this idea of like realistic environments. This is a particular thing that does not come into play until the modern era is this element of having 3D objects come into the mix. Now you can pick items up and really carefully inspect them in inventory. So I'm just curious, Carter, like what you have found so far with that particular component of new Nancy Drew, and like, do you think it works? Or
Well, I've played other games where that function has been a thing. I haven't found it to be particularly um, as useful in the Nancy Drew games yet. Like I can't think of, like for example, in the Nancy Drew games, let's say you had a piece of paper and you were able to do like a whole like 360 rotation on it,
Mhm.
and then you find something on the back, right? But in past games, if there was something on the back, maybe the corner would be kind of like tilted up, and then your magnifying glass would be red, and you could like turn it, and
Mhm.
she'd be like, "Oh my gosh, there's something on the back," or whatever she would say. But I haven't really like I mean, I think it's a cool function, but I guess I just haven't really found it to be as, I guess, of useful yet in the Nancy Drew games so far. I can't think of an object where I was like, wow, I'm so glad I was able to rotate that.
Well, I'm even thinking more so in terms of the visuals.
Oh,
I
yeah. Oh,
mean,
well, the
like
visuals
the
too. Yeah.
details of looking things up close. Does that
I
make
mean,
any difference
I
for
guess not.
immersion
I
or
mean, I
no?
guess not. Yeah, I guess I didn't. I guess I didn't. Haven't really like needed that. You know what I mean? Not for me.
Okay. Well, I what I was going to say is I do think, especially because what we were saying in particular about like Midnight in Salem, where it
Right.
feels like assets are just kind of getting thrown down into these environments. They don't truly feel like they belong there, or like that they're actually part of the space. They feel like someone just put them there,
Oh,
or like the
absolutely.
fact that the Perry house feels
Sterile.
excessively like sterile.
Mm.
um I actually do find that I have found, not with every object, but definitely with some of the 3D inventory objects in the two newest games, I actually do think those have um added immersion where maybe the environments failed to. Like for example, and I'm thinking very particularly of like there's a lighter that you can pick up outside the Perry's house. It's on
Hmm.
their porch. It's like a leopard print lighter, and if you inspect it, you can actually see, like, you can see fingerprint marks on it and things like that, and it looks a little smudged and kind of greasy, like the oil from someone's finger or whatever has been on it. And I was like, whoa. Like that to me is like such a stark contrast to just how lifeless the whole house looks.
Sure.
And I think the reason why, now I don't think like not every object I have inspected in those two games is like, whoa, this looks so real and
Right.
detailed. But it's definitely some of them have. And part of this is, and we're gonna give a shout out to our friend Cameron, Distant Dimensions, who is working on his own Nancy Drew style kind of point and click mystery game. And he actually, in his most recent newsletter, he addressed kind of this matter of like he's actually gotten a lot of questions about like what's your secret for making 3D objects look realistic. And Cameron said that the way he would answer that is imperfection, scratches, peeling paint, dirt, rust, corrosion, and so on. All of it helps add the detail we're used to seeing in real life. And so I think um when some of that 3D inventory inspection, you do sometimes you get to see the imperfections on these objects. And I think that's what makes it like it helps with the immersion for me. Where I think her interactive still needs to work is on the environments themselves. They're too perfect. They're missing that sense of like even what you said about like the clutteredness, the sense that people live here, yeah, and like seeing dirt or dust or things looking kind of run down and old or whatever. So
Yeah.
Perry House, ew. Now Merrick's shop in Mystery of the Seven Keys, I think that's more. I still didn't find it that immersive, only because it still looks a little bit too much like the Sims thing you mentioned. Like things, I don't know if the issue is like I don't know enough about like how Unity works to tell like what they need to change to make all that look like it truly is like part of the space.
Sure.
Um but yeah, and I know you added some things like going back more so to the like cluttered aspect. There were some things in Mystery of the Seven Keys that you thought were a little bit better, but
Well, the cluttered aspect, but even like just the detail of the space, but also to answer your question. So, well, let me start there. Okay, so well, I mentioned, you were talking about Merrick's shop and stuff, but and I agree with you. I actually thought the same thing. I was like, "Oh, it's like they were trying to make like a cluttered environment, but it didn't clutter exactly how it's supposed to." But I did think that Key did a better job at creating more spaces that were cluttered and detailed to Snoop, in the sense of
yeah. Yeah.
I liked Leo's desk. I thought like there was stuff everywhere that felt real to like go through, and I was like, okay, so that's a step up, I would say.
Yeah.
Um, and then also the alchemy lab, I thought was a really neat space to snoop as well. So
Yeah.
um, I think that maybe they're getting there, but you know,
Yeah.
yeah. But no, to answer your question, I think with the 3D objects, and I don't know, it's hard for me because I've played games where there have been 3D objects, and I remember in my first game I ever played where I was able to pick up objects and to completely spin them around, I was like, I don't really like this. And that was before the Nancy Drew games. That was like 2015 that I played a game where I could pick a thing up and spin it. And I was like, I'm not a big fan of spinning things 360 and
Yeah.
doing all
That's
that.
fair.
And
That's fair.
so
And I think you're focusing on it more almost in like the
and the
mechanics.
mechanics, right?
Sounds
But
like.
like I understand that it does provide this aspect, like what you're mentioning with the lighter, like that is cool. That's neat. I think I almost, because I'm not a fan of the mechanics, I would prefer like Nancy to pick something up. And you know how like in the old games, like it would be full screen, like you'd pick something up and she'd be like, and then like it would get even
Yeah.
close up screen and then be like, it looks like there's a fingerprint on this, and then that would be it. I
Yeah.
think I think I'd be okay with that. I I don't know, like sometimes with the 360-degree movement of objects, I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is that I'm not a big fan of, but yeah, I think it's
Yeah. Well,
because
yeah.
I think it's because in the simplicity of how maybe the earlier games would do it, I actually, for me personally, I'm like, no, that immersion is like there for me. Whereas when I get an object in a game and I'm like, you know what I mean? I'm like, it's just like it does it for me personally. Um, yeah, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. The mechanics are more of a immersion breaking kind of thing. I think that's a very fair point because yeah, who
yeah.
stands there?
I
But
don't know. Like I don't know. That's just
yeah,
the way I feel about it.
yeah, I think it's just more what particular component you're paying attention to. But
Yeah.
yeah, whether it's like is this immersive or not immersive? but I wanted to bring it up only because we do have these two new games to
Oh, and they're gonna keep
they're
doing
there
that. I mean, like
to
that's
contend
like
with. So
that's the way that I think they're gonna keep going. It's just for me, I've never
yeah,
really liked those mechanics, and like I do think it is cool. I'm like, oh yeah, it's cool when you can like turn something upside down, and then you're like, oh, there's something underneath it. Like that is cool, but it's just never been a
yeah,
mechanic that I liked.
yeah. We
So,
shall see what the future holds.
well, I'll tell you what does speak to me though, ambience and atmosphere. This is
Absolutely.
one of the best things ever. I love to make ambience videos. I love to make ambience videos, and so it's important to me that the games have an ambience that can grab my soul and put it in a box and ship it to wherever this game is at. So, just speaking on ambience, we're relying on a lot of sounds. And so I think we should maybe dive into a few of those sounds that are particularly strong in some of these games, starting with the Golden Gardenia. I always really appreciated that as soon as Nancy is like reading the letter, you get this just loud crack of thunder and rain at the beginning. And although we don't hear the rain throughout the entirety of the game like Legend of the Crystal Skull, it's just like the perfect starter to like this shut in manor mystery. I mean, it's so spooky and just sets the tone for the rest of the game. And then also too, when you're going through the parlor area and you can hear the clock ticking and striking an hour, I just love it. It's just like it's a particular itch in the brain that it just, yes. Ooh, I love this one too. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, so
Oh,
Whitford
so
Castle,
good.
Treasure in the Royal Tower. Obviously they do a lot with the winter weather in this one because of those
Mm,
gusts of wind,
so good.
echoes and the creaks you hear. And then also when you get to kind of go into like, you're crawling around those in that duct system going through the vents, and I always think like you can hear almost, and it does really sound like the metal is bending underneath you
So
as you
real.
climb around. And then there's things in that dungeon underground area, sounds that you can hear while you're down there, and it um gives like an element of unease and kind of like
Hmm.
creepiness to Treasure in the Royal Tower that otherwise um it kind of almost would be like, probably wouldn't feel like a particularly like unnerving or dangerous game.
Yeah.
So those sounds definitely help. And then the next one, once again, here I go throwing it right back at you to talk about your game, which might be the king of ambience.
I've often heard it referred to as one of the most ambient Nancy Drew games of like, and I agree. I do. I think it is one of the most ambient ones. But you know what, Tori, is that I was thinking when I was like putting together some of the notes, I was like, you know, there really are a lot of sound effects in this Nancy Drew game. I think more utilized than most. Like I was thinking about it like in comparison to maybe the Haunted Carousel. There's no or Secret of Scarlet Hand. Like I actually think that there are a ton of sound effects used in Deception Island. And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. So like at the lighthouse, you have that rhythmic pinging noise and the distant shore sounds. But as you approach the shore more closely, those sounds get louder and you can hear those crashing waves and distant foghorns and seagulls and sea otters. You can hear all of that at the shore because I've tried to isolate and listen to everything while I sit there. When you're kayaking, you can hear the sloshing of the water as she's like paddling. When you're at the Hot Kettle Cafe, you hear the cafe instrument sounds and people mingling. So it's like every individual location has its own set of just immersion And so I think this one, particularly, the ambience is super, super strong here. And also something that I do think does aid in the ambience, but we are more focused on sound. But this game, I do think of it this one, is that there is actual fog. When you go to the shore, you can actually see some like movement of like fog. So like that's nice.
And then you had mentioned Blackmore Manor. Yeah, definitely sounds are very, I think, an essential part of creating the spookiness and the
Oh yeah.
uneasiness in that game. You think, yeah, Nancy opens the door and then you hear that witch laughing. Um, the sounds you can hear down underneath in the. I don't think I'm imagining. I swear you can hear like dripping water or something down in the secret
I
passages.
think you
Which
can.
always, as a kid, man,
It's the water that you need to return back to the well, I presume.
yeah, and also there's hearing you can hear the clock
You
chiming
can.
in that one, especially
It's
if
nice.
Nancy's wandering around at night and it goes off. It's like whoo.
Yeah.
So you really do get this sense of like a place that's it's ancient. It's got a history to it. It's spooky. And then I've been really excited. This is like the first time actually that this game has come up in our conversation, but it's like,
Mm.
you backed me into a corner and said, Tori, like, what's your gold standard for immersive Nancy Drew? Like, baby, I'm telling you, Phantom of Venice. And
Also highly
sound
immersive.
sound is well, Venice does a lot of things right with immersion, but I think its ambient sounds, like just sounds, that game doesn't need any music to be immersive because of all the things they put in, like go around, you can hear those pigeons cooing at you. And one of my favorite details, I know you love this too, is like you
Mhm.
go to an environment and off camera somewhere, you hear locals talking to
Yes.
each other in
Pasta fresca,
Italian.
pasta fresca.
Yeah, and here's the thing, and I guess the best way I know even how to make this stand out even more is to do like a by contrast mention
Mhm.
is like, okay, Phantom of Venice actually, if you think about it, has very almost like limiting environments because you have all these different locations on the map that you can go to, but there's not a ton of like actual like hotspots that you
Mhm.
can
You're right.
click on.
They're almost a little
Like,
flat.
however, however, to me, Phantom of Venice still feels like a very rich and very full, like immersive game because all of the things, well, visuals, I mean, definitely. You could throw that into, the mix of what we were talking about earlier with immersive environments. But because of the things I can hear
Mhm.
while I am playing that game. And like by contrast, like Mystery of the Seven Keys, I find that to be that, that's another international game, but and it has much more wide open environments, and yet it feels less full
Mhm.
because you can walk by those NPCs and they're just staring into nothingness. They don't
Mhm.
talk. Um and it's almost like there's too much to look at. So I
Yeah.
think Venice does it better by keeping things limited. And again, like you don't have to see a single NPC in that game to feel like you are surrounded by Italian people.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great one. And then you mentioned a lot of things with this one that you really appreciate. So maybe you can talk about Castle Malloy.
Oh, I love this one too. Yeah, no, just exploring the ins and outs of the castle and the surrounding land. You hear like all kinds of odd noises. Of course, the jetpack noises, but just like spooky stings, and bog nature noises. And if you pay really close attention, you can also hear distant shore because we are close to the water. So, which I think is nice. You can hear birds, so it's just very ambient, very, very ambient space. But I love everything you said about Venice. Oh my gosh. Yes, 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 yes to everything you said. It's a great one. And then I don't know, did you want to also go ahead and bring up this key one?
Yeah, well, yeah, because we're talking about ambience, and this is actually, I actually mean this. I listed it in the notes as a negative. I suppose, in a sense, I actually mean it as a positive. It's where something else in the game is getting in the way. Um, Mystery of the Seven Keys, and you all, those of you who own the game, you may not realize this. Mystery of the Seven Keys actually has quite a lot of ambient sound. Did not realize this because the music volume in that game is set so high, and also the music, because of the looping thing, you never get pockets of silence. So I was shocked to discover one time I just turned the music volume down, and I think I maybe turned some of the other volume knobs up, and I was like, "Wait, what?" I could hear coffee, like the sounds of coffee being made and dishware clinking in the cafe. I was like, "I did not realize this game has ambient sounds." And it has it in other places. So that's actually like, I guess I mentioned that as, you know, um they are still trying to make sure that there's ambient sound in the game, but they seem to have not quite mastered the balance component yet of how do we balance constant music with being able to hear things that are part of the environment and make you feel like, cuz obviously, Carter, as much as I would like to, I don't walk through life hearing a constant soundtrack. But I do walk through life hearing the world make noise around me. So yeah, that one was just, that was just an interesting discovery to
Yeah.
me.
No, I
So
mean, like I had no idea that they had ambient noises. Now I feel like I'm gonna have to replay that one and remind myself to turn the music down so I can hear them. See if it makes
yeah.
a difference, you know?
Mhm.
But and then we come to our last point with the environment talk. This is our last sub point, which is the jump scares and the spooks, which I think is
Ooh.
such a fun conversation to have because, you know, would mentioned here, the less predictable, the better. And there are some games, the spooky games actually do have a variation here where there are two games that it is harder to tell when things are going to happen because they're harder to trigger. And then there are some that happen the same way every time, no matter what. And it does change the way that you are immersed into it.
Yep. Yep.
The way I explained for the ones that are harder to trigger is that, the player, when you're playing something like Message in a Haunted Mansion or Curse of Blackmore Manor, you don't know how to trigger it. There is no sometimes rhyme or reason of how the trigger happens, which then creates for a more authentic and genuine
Yeah.
time of spookiness because you're like, is this the time where when if I walk out the door, will this thing appear? I don't know. And so that means that every time you exit the door, you're going to be on edge for that thing to come out.
Yeah.
And
Or
that's if you know
contrary,
it.
sometimes contrary wise, sometimes even when we do know, because it's happened to me before, I kind of forget because I get so into what I'm doing and I put
Yeah.
my guard down,
Oh,
and then the
yeah.
spook happens unexpectedly. I'm like, no, no, oh,
Or it doesn't even
I
happen
wasn't
at
ready.
all. And
Yeah.
so,
Oh, there's a special kind of anxiety when it never happens because then you
yeah,
can't set it aside. Like, yeah,
exactly. So it's like, having that, man, what a high immersion, but also replayability as well. Um,
yeah,
yeah, it's great. But in contrast, though, you've got these other two spooky games where the spook is the same every time. There is like, I'm thinking of Message in Haunted Mansion. I'm thinking about all the little furniture that moves and breathes and things like that that are you may or may not see or experience. And then, you think of something like Shadow at Water's Edge, where those like same few things they have to happen in the like the linearness of the game. Like it has to
yeah,
happen. It's a part of a puzzle. It's a part of a storyline. Like they have to happen. Like you're not seeing other random things. Like you see the picture fall. You're going to see the girl in the mirror. You're going to get trapped in the room. You're going to get trapped underwater. You're going to see the ghost writing on the wall. Like those are the 5 things that always happen every time at the same place at the same time. So like, you know,
Yeah.
the I don't know.
Yeah, and I've actually found, like, as a player now, like, I still love Shadow at the Water's Edge, but I play it now and have quite a high level of, I feel, almost like detachment from that game's spookiness because I
Yeah,
know exactly what's about to happen.
exactly.
And Ghost of Thornton Hall now Ghost of Thornton Hall does have some where I know they're coming. I don't know exactly when they're happening, but it also does have, like, I always know the first time I go into the ruins, I'm gonna see Charlotte's ghost. Like, I'm prepared for it. Doesn't shock me. Doesn't scare me. Yeah, and there's a few others in Thornton Hall where it's like, I know what's coming. I'm not scared. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
I feel that.
I definitely love. I mean, as terrifying as it is, I do think it just, yeah, it's better. Better when you can't. It's better for immersion
Mm-hmm.
when you can't predict what's coming.
I agree.
Yes. All right. And then so we finished like with environment. And this point actually we're going to keep this very brief, but we wanted to mention more some principles. Like this is going to be a quick fly through because we did want to bring up music. Obviously, music has been an essential part of having an immersive Nancy Drew experience. So we're going to keep it big picture here and then just remind you all, like, we have 3 deep dive episodes on all of the soundtracks where you can consider these principles in more detail. So I just have 3 kind of, these are more like big picture, like what what makes for a good soundtrack so that you feel immersed in the game. What do we need the music to do so that happens? Well, first of all, good soundtrack embodies its location. And when I say that, actually I'm going to nuance that. I don't just mean like the actual physical location where the mystery takes place, but I would say it also needs to embody, like, the mystery itself. Like if you're playing a spooky game, the soundtrack better have some spooky components to it or it's not doing its job. So like, Haunted Ryokan. Shadow at the Water's Edge has a lot of tracks that make you feel like, yeah, you're in a Japanese locale that is haunted. And I always go back to, again, I don't know, I wish I knew who this person was who left this comment on my survey because, like, they seared it into my brain. They were praising one of the soundtracks. I think it was Stay Tuned for Danger, and they said they described it as I was made for this game and this game only. I think that's what you want. You want to feel like a soundtrack, like, yes, it was handcrafted for that particular location and mystery, and that if you picked it up and put it in another Nancy Drew game, like, it's not gonna work. And I would say in general, international soundtracks tend. I think it's easier to get immersion with an international soundtrack because just by their nature, they kind of require the composer, and Kevin in particular was, I feel like, the best at this, at getting the culture's music correct so that you could really feel immersed. And then second quality of a good soundtrack is and I like how you worded this, Carter, when you were going
Thanks.
through and reorganizing all the notes, that it vibes the emotions of the setting. So meaning if you're supposed to feel a certain way in the game, the music needs to help you feel that way. So for example, why do Nancy Drew games, why does almost every soundtrack have a danger track?
Mm-hmm.
Because inevitably you're going to be in a moment of high stress and high danger, and the music is honestly, it really goes a long way in helping you feel appropriately terrified and on edge and panicked about whatever you're supposed to be doing in that moment. Again, Aunt Eloise, that track. Why is that a
It's
good track?
yeah, so soft, so
Because Aunt
cozy.
Eloise's house in the original game is the one place in the game where absolutely nothing dangerous happens.
Hmm.
And so it makes you feel safe and at ease. It's supposed to do that. That's a good thing. Um, and or like, Ghost Dogs. Ghost Dogs has got um a good balance, I feel like, with some of those tracks that you hear, I think particularly in at nighttime. Sometimes you might hear Moon, which is very calming. Sometimes you might hear a track like Spooky that makes you feel really uneasy, especially if you got to go through the woods, which again I think is appropriate. It's appropriate to when you're wandering outside because Ghost Dogs has this unique mixture of it's gorgeous out there at night, but also those dogs might be coming for me, so I don't feel totally safe right now. And then third principle is just um good soundtrack allows you to lose yourself in the mystery. It not get distracted by the music itself. Like I think like a good soundtrack needs to get out of its own way. Now, I have said, and again, we talked about this during our music deep dives. Like there are some tracks, sometimes you just got to stop what you're doing and enjoy the music. But that's a personal choice on the player's part. Um, Again, I think our first two composers, they really excelled at this. Like their music allowed you to just lock in and really lose yourself in the mystery. And you don't really get distracted by like, man, what's going on with this music? Like I cannot concentrate. Versus again what I've already conveyed, I think the struggle of what's going on with Ryan Ricks right now, and it's not entirely just his fault, is both some of his musical choices combined with her interactive's obsession with looping becomes very, very distracting. I cannot immerse into the mystery because I'm too busy losing my mind with what I can hear in the soundtrack. So just wanted to get that in there so we didn't leave music out of the conversation. But honestly, what Carter and I feel about this is we would encourage you all to, I mean, if you've already seen the episodes, great, or even also go back and re-listen to the music deep dive episodes, and you will really see, especially if Carter and I are very like complimentary of a soundtrack, even if we didn't like say these principles, like even if we didn't like verbalize them, we were definitely like we were really attracted to like that game's music because somehow you know it was playing on these qualities.
But also, another part of the games that we wanted to talk about that help with the immersion are actually the puzzles. And that may be like shocking to you listening, like the puzzles help with the immersion, but in a in a different sense than maybe what you're thinking. It's not necessarily um it's really how the puzzle itself is presented within the game
Yeah.
as you're experiencing it as the player. We actually kind of briefly talked about this in our Shadow Ranch episode because Tori brought up like, how do you feel about the chores? And my response is I actually appreciate and love the chores that are in the Shadow Ranch game because they feel so real. Um, and there is a difference between Shadow Ranch chores and Trail of the Twister chores. Trail of the Twister chores, the chores are the puzzles. Like you're going to go buy stuff for a survival kit, which feels real, but like that actually is the puzzle, right? Not that you're just doing chores because you're helping out on the farm. That is actually the puzzle, right? And everything that you do, therefore, the rest of the game, every chore is a puzzle. Whereas in Shadow Ranch, I know that I'm here to help out on the ranch, but I'm also solving a mystery. And so, yes, I have to pick, the perfect vegetables and collect the eggs, but that's actually what I would do if I was helping on the ranch. and at the same time I'm uncovering things that are leading to a treasure hunt, but those are the actual puzzles. And that feels a lot more realistic to Nancy uncovering things as a detective. And so we kind of wanted to like point out those examples that you can find that are real and practical things that Nancy does in the games. So you want to start us off, Tori?
Final scene is it has a very investigative approach to its puzzles because we're
Yeah.
like Nancy is tracking down clues to try to figure out like is Maya in the building, who kidnapped her, um and even and I know it's a very phone call heavy game, but even there is a sense of realism, I feel like, to how many times we got to call the police and tell them about something we found, or calling these like other locations and trying to get information out of them because it's
Mm-hmm.
relevant to the mystery. And then I'm a big fan of this game, honestly. I just find a lot of immersion in being deputy curator in Secret of the Scarlet Hand and going in and having that whole checklist
Oh,
of
it's
like things that
so
I am responsible for,
so
and
good.
there are puzzles integrated into that. Like I just find that's very realistic. That's why she went to Beach Hill. Now Nancy does also get to do investigative stuff when she learns more about things going on. Um so I mean, I think that works really well. And then there's others, some of the other games, Carter.
Oh, and we have to talk about the golden era scavenger hunts. We talked about the ranch chores, but the golden era scavenger hunts, like finding a dozen little craters or going clam hunting. Okay, lots of people hate the clam hunting, but how real is that you would have to go to all, find where they're actually at? You may have to go to a
and yeah,
different beach and you have to,
and
you know,
sometimes you're gonna pull up things that weren't what you're looking for.
right. So like it does feel very real. Um oh, and then this one, we talked about Phantom of Venice, the stakeout. I mean, that is so realistic. I mean, you're literally listening for the phrases. They're reacting to which phrase that you're picking. I mean, like you're having to remember from the book, like the little book that you like look at right before you go on the stakeout. It's very real. Like if that was
I
Nancy,
Yep.
like that would be really real.
I think it's hands down the best use of foreign language
Absolutely.
in a Nancy Drew puzzle
Absolutely.
because you are hearing the Italian and thankfully also seeing it on the screen or like, oh
Yes.
my word, it'd be I think impossible. Yeah, I just
So
love that.
good.
That
It's so
it's
good.
not just limited to reading and translating words, but you have to hear the words and do a quick translation in your head and then
Yeah.
respond accordingly.
Yeah. And I know we already talked about Alibi and Ashes with the whole, like, we said similar to Ash, like, final scene. The same way with Alibi and Ashes, like, a lot of the tasks and duties that you're having to fulfill in this game, they feel very appropriate and very real to what you should be doing, which is gathering evidence and putting it on the board and trying to come together to make a case. Like, it just feels very real. You made a very good point, and I'm very excited to talk about what you mentioned here because I feel this so very strongly. So take us there.
The personal era definitely, I think, presented a shift in Nancy Drew puzzles. Um, that era really goes hard with puzzles. And I actually do think I will shout out Iris in tarot games here. She actually has talked about these later games before as ones that um she doesn't love their writing, but she's like when I'm just in a mood for puzzling,
Mm-hmm.
that's when I really love these later games. Which I see that's like, man, yeah, you just want to like do puzzles, like pull out those personal era games and go for it. However, in terms of like, yes, immersive Nancy Drew experience, this era can, I think, become almost overwhelming in its volume of puzzles and difficulty of those puzzles. And it sometimes those games start to feel less like mysteries to me sometimes and more like puzzles for puzzle's sake. And I actually think of now I actually do really enjoy Labyrinth of Lies. And again, actually my favorite thing about Labyrinth of Lies is when I have to do my museum tasks. Um but anyway, I think it was Kalina. I think Kalina, one time I saw her somewhere, she described Labyrinth of Lies. And let's be real, honestly, it's the truth. It's the truth. She described Labyrinth of Lies as you solve a puzzle to get a puzzle, to solve another puzzle, to get another puzzle. Like,
It's very
and
true.
honestly, Sea of Darkness does it too, especially towards the end game when you're trying to get deep into the wells of that ship. Puzzle, 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 puzzle. Like really goes hard. So I
Mhm.
find, like I say, Ghost of Thornhall, Silence by, Labyrinth of Lies, Sea of Darkness are kind of my like four. Um,
It's true.
can sometimes feel like too much. Now, personally, my onion, although
But this is it right here.
art,
This is it.
I think Tomb of the Lost Queen. Listen, I will go to bat for Tomb of the Lost Queen's puzzles any day. If I had to rank Nancy Drew games just on puzzles, that game's an S tier for me. I love that game's puzzles. It is a puzzle heavy game. However, that one to me feels appropriate, both in the difficulty and the way they weave in those elements of having to know ancient, figure out things related to ancient Egypt. Like I don't know what else to say other than it feels very realistic, and to me, or maybe realism is the wrong word, but it feels straight out of The Mummy. Y'all know the movie The Mummy, of like the ancient Egyptians. Their pyramids are very important, and they
Hmm.
have important people in there. You
Yeah.
really think they're gonna make it easy for you to find who's in there,
Yeah.
or find whatever else may be hiding in that pyramid? So like, I think Tomb of the Lost Queen, like that game feels, the puzzles feel so appropriate.
But not just appropriate, but they naturally like they play out how I feel like they're supposed to. It's not
Yeah.
like Labyrinth of Lies where you're like a puzzle to uncover the puzzle to receive another.
Yeah, it's like, why is there a puzzle even there? That makes no sense.
Exactly. Like, yeah, this is more naturally placed, making for a better immersion, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's why the later games maybe not, they're such a, a hit and miss with people as well. Um, but I loved that point. I thought that was an excellent point. And then my favorite part of the entire episode, we're moving on now from music and puzzles, how immersive the Nancy Drew games can be is their world building. And we've actually mentioned this a few times in our episodes, but world building to me is like the core of all immersion. And it really sells to the player this idea that Nancy lives, breathes, and reacts to the environment and just how we would in the real world. And we are a part of it. Like we are a part of this real life thing. My favorite way it does this, and this is the thing that I've most been looking forward about talking about, is our first point under this, which is actual change. Now, some of this has been brought up in previous points, but we're going to get into the real nitty gritty of actual change in the Nancy Drew games. And I love when they do this. It just really, really makes things feel so real. This is when things actually unfold and change before our eyes, often through cutscenes. But the games are creating this sense of realness that we would not experience otherwise. It's selling to you that you're not just in this mystery bubble, but that there's things actually happening outside of the realm of where Nancy's at. And it is the highest form of immersion in my onion that these games offer is this right here. Nothing beats this stuff right here. So starting it off, We're going to talk about Stay Tuned for Danger, Message in Haunted Mansion, and the many other games where they utilize this. But setting the game from day to night, having that actual switch and change is such a huge part of immersion to me and world building. Because you can be, and I'm using Stay Tuned for Danger for example, you have to, as the player, think, oh well, I have to like sneak around the studio, but like when am I going to do that? When is everybody not here? Nighttime. And so you switch to nighttime, and now it's this whole different scene. We got like different sleuthy music, and we're able to do lots of snoopy detective things like taking a card and, breaking into people's office. And it brings apart this time change that feels real. I'm alone in this studio right now at night. And same for Message in a Haunted Mansion. And this one is super immersive. The characters are only available at a certain time in the day. So you have to make sure that you're getting to that location at that time in order to catch them. And that feels so real. It's like that's a real thing. Not just having a character.
Or avoiding the time when they would be there.
Exactly.
Ew.
Like I'm imagining in my head, which I don't know because I haven't played it yet. It hasn't come up in my playthrough. Secrets Can Kill, the very original one, 1998. But I imagine the characters are always constantly just sitting there and they're doing that same like 5-second loop. And they're just and they never leave and they're just always there. And I'm like, what a step up to go from that to this. And then the characters are there, but they're not there. And then we have to. Oh, it's just so good. I can't. It's just so good, Tori. Okay. I'm done.
And then other things changing, Treasure in the Royal Tower. There's that snowstorm that there's a window of time in that game where you cannot go outside because of the storm. And then it backs off. It suddenly
I love that.
Can.
I love that. Like, do you see? And this I feel like is the biggest thing that's like proving our point of like how sophisticated these games in their simplest of ways made it feel like you were really immersed in there versus all this new stuff.
Final scene, the 3-day game, and each day is unique in what happens. Because obviously, day 1 is the kidnapping and all the chaos of that. But then like day 2, you have this press conference.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, the missing flyers that get passed around. And then there's that funeral wreath. The vandalism on Brady Armstrong's, little cutout. And that gives you a sense of like, yes, you can tell like the days are actually changing. The mystery is getting higher stakes. Like, I have to find Maya before this building goes down.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good.
And then Secret of the Scarlet Hand has that big, turning point of, spoiler alert once again, Henrik falling down the stairs and getting hospitalized. And
I remember being so thrown off by that. Just
yeah,
opening the door and hearing that.
Well, and I think it's also because that game certainly gives you an impression going into it. Like, you're not really surprised per se by a carving getting stolen.
Yeah.
Because I think even just the game description and stuff like that, you kind of get a sense of that. But nobody could have predicted Henrik was going to fall down the stairs. And then, suddenly the whole case changes because this guy can't remember a thing.
I can't remember.
Yeah, increases all the danger. And then, okay, here I go. Throwing it back to you again. It's like if DDI, come on now.
Okay, and we actually did mention this in this episode, but when you return to the cafe right after it's been burglarized and then it's just silent, and you're used to the cafe being full of life and talking and chatter, and now it's just dead silent. Oh, wow. It's chilling. And then the emails. I love the emails. And I know we're going to talk about that later, but like it's this idea that she receives an email every so often. And so it's real. It's world building. It's building on this idea that there are things happening back home that are not happening right here. And Nancy's getting to partake in that, being like, oh, dad, he's so silly. You know, somebody please put oxygen on me. I'm about to die. This is so good. But I'm going to throw it back to you then, because this is your favorite episode or
It's so
game.
funny because our favorite games are back to back. So we tennis for two. That's what we're doing here. Um, so yes, again a 3-day game, and yes, I do think the cut scenes, the drama of like having a different element of sabotage happen each day, and as a result, there are new clues for Nancy to uncover to try to figure out what's going on. Like that's so good. And honestly, again, as much as we might want to hurt Shorty because he keeps telling us to go pick vegetables, at the same time, I think I've always thought it's great that when you start on day one, the vines are filled.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you go, like some things ripen, some things over ripen, and the things that you picked, they don't magically grow back. Like it gets emptier and emptier as the days progress. So
It's
even
so
the way
real.
they approach the chores is very immersive. Um Blackmore, yeah, which hard to trigger, but things like if you can get Linda's plate of raw meat to show up by her bed,
Mm.
and then of course the spooks. The more spooks you get in that game, the more sense you get of like this is getting really dangerous. Like what have I gotten myself into?
Oh, yeah.
And even actually, I think about like how Jane gets real standoffish towards the end of that game, and also Linda, so even like the way the characters change and how they interact with you, you get a sense of like
Yes.
time is running out. Like I got to figure this out.
Oh, yeah.
And then we got some of our experimental era games. If you want to talk about
And
change in
this is one of
those.
my favorite ones ever, Danger by Design. Every single time that there's a new day, there's a new newspaper to read. I think that there's what, 6 of them is what you've uncovered? Is that what you said?
I can't remember,
I
but
think you said 6.
it's a good number.
Yeah, it is a great number. And these are like you can read them. Like you can read the article for the top story of the day. And that makes it feel unique to what's actually happening in the city of Paris while you're there solving the mystery. That there really is a physical day change and more news is happening. White Wolf
Mm.
of Icicle Creek is unique, and that people continue to leave the lodge throughout the game. So the suspect list gets shorter and shorter. And, it's interesting because having that change, that dynamic there is it feels very real, that people would
Yes,
just like leave.
and their departure even changes Nancy's responsibilities because you get to that
Mm.
point where Ollie's like, "Okay, I'll cook now because there's not enough people here to make you do it."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And this one actually happened very recently when I was streaming, that I was reminded, it actually literally said in the game, I was like, this is such high immersion. And in my mind, I was thinking, I will put this in the notes. But, it's the very end of the game. And it's the call. It's kind of like Danger on Deception Island. It's the last call you make that is signaling that you're at the end of the game. But it's when Nancy and Bess are on the phone and they get disconnected. You hear that loud crack of thunder, and then anyway, it was like, and then Nancy will be like, "Wow, did you hear that loud crack of thunder?" Anyway, da 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 da. Bess, hello, Bess, and it's just like silent, and she's in that spooky like hidden room with little Timmy. We found out what his name is, the little dummy. Oh my gosh, it's just so real. It's just so real. I'm like, that's a change that occurs that feeds into my mind that this is all real.
and then Phantom of Venice has some of these. I'm actually gonna save for our next sub point under this one, but
Sure.
certain things like yes, well, the change that's like there are real consequences to like Nancy comes with that locket, and then there's that very dramatic cutscene where the Phantom she wakes up in the night and the Phantom steals that locket. And then of course the locket becomes a bit of a plot point and shows up at the very end of the game once again. And so you see real, like, just all Nancy's doing is wearing a piece of jewelry, but there's so much change and consequences created in the game because of that. And then of course there's the optional plot created by, like, if you see the sausages on the table and you interact with those, and there's just a whole, and then you get a whole like subplot mystery trying to figure out, who gave me these tainted sausages.
But I think that brings up a great point that maybe we should just go ahead and jump into the next point.
Yeah. And this is world building, especially like through, like writing, in the sense of like dialogue and the things that you can read. And you already mentioned the newspapers, but there's really just so many things, like Scarlet Hand, Nancy's like dialogue, and like some of the sounds she makes when she picks up those calendar stones. Like, I can't hold on to these much longer. And you really do, I really do feel as a player like, holy smokes, oh no, like, what have I done? We gotta move. We gotta get these out of our hands. Or those thawed fish, those thawing fish in Danger on Deception Island, and like what Nancy says when she opens up the cooler and sees them there. Like, you definitely get a sense of like, oh, this smells disgusting. And I think I remember when we did the Shadow Ranch episode, I made a comment about this line, and you were all like, "Oh, like, it's so important," but you're like, "We can't talk about it yet because we knew this episode was coming."
I know it's here.
Yeah, it's so hot. I should get these vegetables into Shorty right away. So Carter, what did you want to say when that line came up in our Shadow Ranch
I just wanted to say, I'm like, look, I don't have to have 4K graphics where I can see the heat waves coming from the distance of a mirage and the desert area of Shadow Ranch, Arizona. I don't have to have that. All I have to have are just these little tiny little commentary things that make me go, oh, it must be like super hot there, that Nancy comments and says these things that she's not even talking to anyone. She was talking to herself. And it just is like, it builds that world building, but also too, in addition to that, the radio as well. Skies are going to be clear, and with 87, it's like telling you the weather. Like, it's all those things that like put those little seeds in your mind that it's a hot, hot day, when text tells you about, you better not leave Bob all hot and sweaty with the, you better, hot and sweaty, hot day, hot, hot, hot. They continue to put those seeds in your mind because they don't need 4K graphics to tell you it's hot. You just get all these pictures of these seeds in your mind, and then it grows and blooms and it's hot. All right, that was it. World building. World building.
Also, and this is something that a lot of fans have been giving feedback on and asking Her Interactive to reconsider in the newer games, is we want phone conversations with our friends, just because we want to hear about their lives.
Thank you.
We want to update them on our life and just literally talk through what's going on in the mystery.
Thank you.
Like, please don't only let me call my friends because I have to. Like, I need something from them.
I want to know about Wrecked Rue, Adobe Beige, Goldie. Yeah. I want to know about all those things.
Yes. And then just in general, again, newspaper. Anytime there's a newspaper in these games, chef's kiss. Which again, you can go back to our favorite games episodes to hear us talk about some of those newspapers in our favorite games. But even also, I think of the ones you can pick up in Captive Curse, that really give you more of a sense of like that community, and how they feel about the monster and stuff like that. And then again, my my beautiful Phantom of Venice. I love this game, Carter, and I feel like they don't do this enough. And I love what this game does is you can get unique interactions with the characters
Based on what you
based
wear.
on what you choose to wear.
Yes.
Like if you talk to Colin while dressed as Samantha Quick, he'll like you know,
Is that a wig you're wearing?
yeah. Or if you talk to Helena with the cat suit, she'll talk about your suit, and she'll actually make you have to do the dialogue trees like just right, but you can get her to say something about like when she's talking about I think what she's gonna wear for Carnivale. If she's seen you in the cat suit at that point, I want to say it's something like she'll even say, I may ask if I can borrow your outfit, or something like that. And so you get those little interactions that you wouldn't otherwise. And even just there's something like, okay, even just this little detail of like when Nancy and Helena are talking to each other about Colin, they'll lower their voices because he's
right
physically
there,
on the
yeah.
other side of the room.
Yes. Those are details that just matter.
Yes. And then I am a big fan. I will always read whatever educational like reading material that her interactive wants to give me because
Sure.
I find it immersive, like it gives me a sense of place.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to read those exhibit plaques in the museums. Um because that gives me more of a sense of like where I am
Yeah.
and what I'm doing. Um so and then this is like just a modern era unique detail that I just thought worth bringing up. Is this thing of like, which I'm glad you get a choice on this. Is they introduced this component of text accessibility where you can like pick up reading material of some sort, and then you can click and you'll get this like pop out box that makes it easier to see the text. So on the one hand, I do think that's an important feature to have because sometimes it is genuinely difficult to read certain fonts or based on their size.
Sure.
But I like that the two newer games still give you the option of like you can sit there and read it like from the book itself.
Oh, yeah.
I think I remember I feel like I feel like I have these memories of when you streamed Mystery of the Seven Keys. I think you like tried the text accessibility, and I feel like you maybe I'm totally imagining this, but I feel like you made a comment on like I prefer reading it out of the book. That feels
Probably
more
did.
realistic or something. Um and honestly, you know what, Carter? You know the cursive in those early games, I can think of Message in the Haunted Mansion in particular has this set of
Yes.
papers in the attic. Like
They're so hard to read.
good luck, but I love it. That
Yeah.
feels very immersive to me. That I and like I'm just trying to figure out like what letters are those. So I I'm glad that the modern era still gives you the option of like you can read it out of the book. I would rather like squint and try to decipher fonts and read out of the books
Yeah.
themselves. And also personally in my onion, I do appreciate I like that I can actually see the page like makes a little flipping noise and like physically turns in front of me. So I don't know. That's just a little detail in the newer reading material that like I'm glad it's there.
Me too. I mean, it is nice. It is always nice to have that as a backup option. But I agree. I always have appreciated, even though it's hard, it is real if you're reading some 1800s document, trying to be like, oh, what does it say? So,
And then what you should talk about are the last point under world building, which we are calling just because
just
gameplay.
because gameplay. You know, a lot of people, I feel, fly over this part of the games. They maybe don't appreciate it for what it is. But just because gameplay is part of the Nancy Drew games where it is simply there just because. It does not need to be there, but it is there. Why? Because they care enough to put it there. And so I care enough to participate. So, my beloved Danger on Deception Island, you could build a sandcastle. Has nothing to do with the mystery. Has nothing to do with the story, the plot. Offers you no benefit as a player. You don't win anything. You don't get a clue. It is literally just there for your entertainment. But also, how fun is that? That you can sit there and take your time to slow down and build a sandcastle and listen to the shore and just literally be on Deception Island. It's nice. I like it. It's just because gameplay, and it builds the world around us. Good night. But no, you make some other good points here too. You get danger by design. When you're out in Pont Neuf and you're having to like buy and haggle stuff for Manette, you can actually buy stuff you don't even need. And you don't, I don't know. Like I remember when I first started playing this game, I bought everything. So I was just keep making money and buying everything because I thought, I don't know, maybe I'll use it later. And just come to find out I didn't need it at all. Which, how real is that? Buying stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Kapu Cave.
Yeah, you should talk about those next few, I feel.
I mean, I realize like Kapu Cave, technically the first necklace you make is a required part of the plot. But then after that, it's like you can try to make all those necklaces just because you want to have a chill time on the beach. Go look for shells. Go for it. Make necklaces to your heart's content. Buy all the souvenirs. Phantom of Venice. Again, what? I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. I love this game. And this episode made me realize like some of the reasons why I really love this game. Okay. You want to make gelato? You want to put those combos of flavors however you want? Like, yes, go sugar crazy. Eat it all. Eat as much as you want in any combination that you want just because it's there. Spend that money. And then just, you don't need all those Carnivale outfits, but if you want to be a part of the experience and the event, you want to put a crazy outfit on every day and make Margarita and Colin and Helena wonder, like, ma'am, what's going on with her? Go for it. Put those outfits on. Waverly. That piano. Listen, I know there's a piano puzzle in that game. You only gotta hit 4 white keys to solve it. But do you know what they did? They gave me a full range of white and black keys. You don't need to hit a single black key to beat that game, but they gave it to me anyway. Now I can just sit there and play piano until the rest of the students tell me to go to bed. You know how much joy that fills me with, Carter? You know how many tunes I crank out on that piano?
Oh, I know.
Like, thank you. Thank you. They didn't need to do that, and yet they did. And yes, I love it. Trail of Twister. You wanna go out and just take a chill from the mystery? Take pictures of clouds. Do it. And then I love this one. This one is so great to me. Alibi and Ashes. The fact that you could eat any of the ice cream that you want, but also this to me, this is the winner. They will give you a receipt at the end of the game that shows like all of your purchases
and how much money you spent.
And how much you spent on ice cream.
It's amazing. It's truly amazing.
Yeah. And I actually did one time. I set out in this game. I was like, okay, I need to surpass Kevin McAllister's hotel bill in Home Alone 2. Kevin, you spent $967 on room service. I said, well, I'm going to spend at least $968 on ice cream at Scoop.
Did you?
I did. I think it ended up being maybe like $2,000 worth of ice cream.
Oh my gosh.
Just
Wow.
because. Just because.
Wow.
Love
But
it.
yeah, no, and that's the world building part. Wow. Loved that. Love world building. And then we're actually entering our one of our last sections that we're talking about with the immersion of Nancy Drew games. It's the second chances. Um, and this is like an iconic part of the Nancy Drew games. It's goes back all the way to the very classic era of games where the book menu would pop up after you made a mistake and you would hit second chance. There's an element of high stakes and fear or danger of what you could do, the risk that you could take, but it doesn't actually end your game. You can have a second chance. So we actually wanted to break down a little bit of the second chances here because they do give you this sense of immersion that you are Nancy and that your choices do matter and they do have consequences. And the first one is the timed snooping second chances. And there are so many of these. We'll hopefully just kind of list those off because they're very similar in how they are. But this is like a huge one for players. Like I know everybody really likes the snooping second chances.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about them?
Well, they're like so anxiety inducing, but like in the best kind of way.
Yeah, they are.
Like stay tuned for danger. Like you talked about the importance of having to snoop at night. Well, there's also a risk to that because you can get caught by Ralph.
But I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
It's happened to me. Yeah, if you wander the halls a bit too much and too long, he will find you and he will give you the boot. Message in a haunted mansion. You do not want Lewis to catch you looking in that briefcase, so it really causes a lot of panic of trying to find what you need and get the information you need. Treasure in the Royal Tower.
My heart.
A library alarm. Holy smokes. And yeah, like I can feel like the way my like chest seizes up if Dexter's trying to come in, like
hear the keys jangling in the door.
Yeah, or like the Waverly snooping after curfew, and you might have to hide from Paige.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like Captive Curses got timed snooping with some of the characters. Deadly Device, you can snoop Victor's office, and I actually love the extra little detail. I think this is a nice little add-on of like Ryan will send you those warning texts of like, you gotta go now. He's coming. Sea of Darkness, Mystery of the Seven Keys both had some snooping, and then Phantom of Venice once again. Now this one's, it's not more so that you're gonna get caught after, like if you take too long, but it's more like it's timed in the sense like it's gonna happen at a particular moment of like Fongo. Oh my word, Carter. I panic in the best kind of way when that door starts jiggling and it's like, oh my gosh, he's coming in here. I gotta hide. What do I do?
And then finding the hiding spot.
Yeah. So I find those very, very immersive versus maybe one snooping that's not quite as immersive would be like when the press conference and final scene is happening. Right. The game will give you as much time as you need to like see things in those characters' environments until you see like the correct things to trigger the next event. So that doesn't really feel, particularly high stakes. And there's no second chance involved. So yeah, snooping. Love
and
it.
Then also too, the second chances, they, aside from having the time snooping ones, they also have a sense of realism to some of them. Some of them are really wacky, and we'll talk about that, but some of them are actually really realistic, like really realistic mistakes that Nancy can make. The biggest one I think, which we talked about earlier in the episode, was Message in a Haunted Mansion, where Nancy can say the wrong thing to Lewis and get busted. And like that is so real. Like you get caught because you were snooping, and now you have to think about what's the right answer to say. You know, it's just that's so realistic. Um, I particularly have a love for this one, the haunted carousel, forgetting to turn the iron off. Like that is so real, you know? Um, I mean, and it's funny because I feel like all of us have done it and it traumatized us. And now, like, every time make sure the iron's off, you know? And then Secret of Shadow Ranch, you know, feeding the animals, and you can actually feed them the wrong way. Also, like, traumatizing, but very realistic. Um, yeah, I mean, all of those are just very real ways that Nancy can have a second chance. So, and then there's the last point where second chances where Nancy could die or be injured in a realistic way. Um, similar to the similar to like the realistic mistakes, but even a step further, like Nancy in Treasure in the Royal Tower freezing to death outside. That's real. Ghost Dogs of Moon Lake being trapped in the shed during a fire and she has to figure out how to escape, you know? Um, Danger by Design, Nancy drowning in the catacombs.
Yeah, that one was actually so immersive, which is funny because you're immersing in water. Um, that one was immersive to the point, like when I played that game as a kid, I was so anxious about drowning. You know, when I could see my breath bar. I remember I went into the message boards and I just found a walkthrough for how, because I was like, I am way too panicked about being underwater and feeling like I might drown.
But yeah.
Yeah. Icicle Creek also, the freezing to death outside. Midnight in Salem's also one when the tunnels fill with water at the end. You're trying to find higher ground. You could drown. Oh, Mistress Seven Keys. That was the first time, like, getting chased in free roam mode was an experience I don't even know how to put into words.
Yes.
That was scary in a way feel like I had never known in the Nancy Drew games until that game.
Yes.
Because we have been
Absolutely.
chased in Nancy Drew games before, but it was point and click,
Mm-hmm.
which created a certain level of detachment. So, yeah. And also, you couldn't physically see the character like approaching you while you were moving through the game. Whereas you could
Yeah.
turn around and you could look at the knight as it walks towards you. No, 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 no. And you can hear its clanking. Like, no, no, no,
Yeah.
no, Carter. I love it, but I also hate it.
Which is actually, you know, I'm glad you brought that up because I think we're going to get into that conversation here in just a little bit, talking about um, just the immersion and what can pull you out. But you actually put a very good question here about the over the top chaotic second chances. How do you feel about those? In the sense of, are they adding to the immersion or are they adding something else to the gameplay? I thought that was a really good question.
I mean, certainly they are adding humor. I mean, what is more funny than watching Nancy get swallowed by a plant?
Right. Or jet
Um,
packing out to the sea and
But
falling.
I think I kind of honestly, Carter, as I think about this, and I didn't really know how I was going to answer this question, but as we've been recording this episode, I feel like I got my answer finally. To me, those really goofy, chaotic second chances, I almost would put them, for me, they kind of fall under the same category as just because
Mm-hmm.
gameplay.
Absolutely.
Like, if you just want to be silly and make Nancy do the dumbest, most irresponsible thing in the world, we will let you do it
Yes.
and have a great
And it
time.
doesn't take away from the immersion or the realism of the game for
No.
me. To me, that's just like the silly sprinkles on top, you
Yeah.
know? So I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. 100% agree with you. You also mentioned too, and I think that this is something to talk about, are end game second chances.
Yes. In
So
yeah.
and broke them up by era. So
In my onion, I think that classic and golden era have the most immersive endings. Um, they tended to be much more dangerous, high stress situations.
yeah,
Again, like you're having to either stop a culprit from escaping
yeah,
by making a quick, like, snap decision about something to do, or you're having to stop a culprit from like chasing you down because they're getting closer and closer to you and you need to escape from them somehow or like mislead them or take them out, like whatever. um I just think that that feels like, yeah, you have met the game's villain. To me, that should feel dangerous.
yeah, yeah.
Um, experimental era, I feel like they started to move away. Like for example, fighting the danger by design culprit. Um,
Kila.
that's just silly. That's just silly. That's that's not immersive for me. I still have a great time, but I don't feel like, wow, oh, this is so intense. Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
just
yeah.
I'm just more like, what the heck is going on right now? I fought imaginary elves that were stronger than you. You know, it's just silly.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, different in its own way. And I think actually I feel like we brought this up in season 1 somehow, that in that era it did become a shift where culprits were like running away from Nancy instead
Yeah.
of
Running to her.
running to her.
Yeah.
And then third person POV. They
Mm.
really were obsessed with that in the experimental era, and it
Mm-hmm.
just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah.
Way too detached of an experience. I don't feel that the third person encounters that you have at the end of those games, they're just really, I don't know. I don't like them nearly as much. And then we'll just keep this more general as we approach our wrap up. But like the personal era just again, personal era really just overloaded with puzzles at the end of their games. They I feel like they drew out the endings a lot longer. Like a lot of things happened between finding out when someone was a culprit versus actually ending the game. Like
Very
Labyrinth
true.
of Lies has a really long ending and a lot of puzzles you must solve before you can get out of the underworld.
Yeah.
Not a very immersive ending to me. And also, it goes to Thornton Hall. That fire is very polite. It'll burn as long as you need it to. So you so you get everybody out. So you know, I'm trying to picture like, yeah, when fires have burned in other Nancy Drew games,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, you had to move. So yeah, just that kind of thing. And then again, you know, modern era. I don't think there's anything to say about the modern era yet because it's
Yeah.
too new.
It's too new. But you know
So
what? You actually brought up the third person POV, which is, kind of veers into like part of the tail end of this conversation is okay, we've really, I think, charted well what makes a Nancy Drew game like a good immersive Nancy Drew game, but also like what pulls you out of that immersion. And I think a lot of what you were just referring to at this end sequencing of games when it's in third person POV, that to me is being pulled out of the immersion a little bit. You know, I think specifically of Creature of Kapu Cave, when you finally get to the very end and then all of a sudden like you're trying to wrap the story up and then it just like goes up from the top now and now you're just playing as like these people, and once you finally beat that little puzzle or whatever, then it shows you a character animation and then the story wraps up, and like that is so takes you out of it. Whereas you
yeah.
think of something like you know uh Message in a Haunted Mansion or Treasure in the Royal Tower, although I may not appreciate their culprits so much as other really strong culprits from that classic golden era, the ending is really good because it's really thrilling because you have to do this one like action to stop the bad guy, you know? Like you've got to remember I got to take the chandelier and undo the rope, or I've
You gotta
got to
choose the right stairs. You
right,
gotta, yeah,
choose the
like
right
your choices
stairs.
matter. If you choose the wrong stairs, game
Exactly.
over.
And like that is an immersive part of being a part of the end sequence. So like I would agree. I think that the third person pop pulls me out of the immersion experience for sure. You actually also mentioned the NPCs, which I know we talked about with Mystery of the Seven Keys versus Phantom of Menace. And again, I agree. It's like, well, let's just copy and paste the same 5 to 10 people
Yeah.
and they don't talk.
And you can tell that their character models were in Midnight in Salem, so that everyone instead now we're making jokes about why is Frank Hardy here in disguise? Judge Danforth, what'd you do to yourself?
Right, yeah.
So
So it you're right. Oh, exactly what you just said. Now that pulls out of the immersion of it being, oh, those are real life random people, strangers. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Simple sometimes can do more.
Yeah. Or like why are you sitting in the cafe with food in front of you just staring into space? Are you okay? Do you need a doctor?
Right, right,
Like,
right.
no, that's not how this is supposed to work.
Yeah. And then even this that you mentioned, does modern era navigation add to the immersion since you can explore environments more thoroughly in a sense? What do you think about that?
Well, Midnight in Salem. Absolutely not. Because I'm too busy screaming at my computer because I can't find the hotspots that turn me in the direction I want to go. Ew.
Yeah.
Um,
But with Mystery of the Seven Keys though,
Mystery of the Seven Keys. I'm actually glad that I did it as point and click before doing it as free roam because I almost am tempted to say if I had tried to play that game on free roam, I think I would have been pulled out of immersion in the sense that I almost think I would have been like overwhelmed. Like there's too much to look at and
yeah.
it's making me feel overloaded. Now that I do think with time, I could see that becoming something where I kind of just get used to it.
Yeah.
But right now, it's almost like, you know, it's too much. And again, you've been talking, emphasizing like the simplicity of the earlier games. Like, yes, there was a simplicity um to just having a nice classic point and click with a finite number of hotspots and yeah, just wonderfully crafted environments. That's all you need.
Yeah. Although I'm excited to see what more they can do with
Yeah.
their future games because
Yeah.
I know we've both said this, like the cafe in Mystery of the Seven Keys,
Yeah.
they really did such a better job at giving it some life and detail that Midnight in Salem lacked. I remember seeing the images and then actually experiencing the game and I was like, this is a gorgeous cafe. Like the detail is off the charts and
Yeah.
you could read so much stuff in the cafe and really pick up things and look at them. The cafe I think was a spot that they really poured some love into. So I'm excited to
Yes.
see more of that from them in this new modern era of Nancy Drew. With now, it's not Case of the Missing Clue anymore. We don't think so. Whatever the name may be, like I'm excited to see kind of like what the locations that they'll dream
Yeah.
up will be like.
Hmm.
But overall, I think even though it's had some elements where maybe it's pulled you out of immersion, I think overall this is something that the Nancy Drew games do the best is their immersion. I think that their ambience and music and environment and all of these things add up and just make for a really highly immersive game. And even the games that may not be everyone's favorite, they still have some really high immersive moments. And I'm so glad that we got to sit down and talk about some immersive Nancy Drew today because it's been something that's seriously been on my mind inside of me for so long, and I'm so glad we're able to get it out and talk about it, because I think a lot of fans and a lot of players would have the sentiments of, oh, I love these games and I love this and that, but being able to take all of that and put it into like a big picture, like, yeah, but did you know that they all work off each other, and that's what makes it such an immersive experience that everyone enjoys. I love to do that with concepts and Nancy Drew and stuff. So I'm glad we finally got to sit down and have that chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was fun.
It was super fun. And thank you so much for catching episode 7. Are we on episode 7 already? Wow. Well, catch us again for our next episode. Tori, should we tell them what it is? This is our last episode,
Yeah.
right? It's our
Mhm.
season finale. Wow. Okay. Well, hit us with it, Tori.
We're going to go out on a really fun note. We knew as soon as we started planning season 2 that this is how we were going to end it, because in the season of onions, there really only is one way to cap it off. Carter and I are going to come next week and share our Nancy Drew hot takes.
Oh, that's going to be such a good episode.
Yeah.
I told Tori, I was like, do I even know what my hot takes are? Like, I was like, I need to think about this. So come next week, bring your popcorn. Maybe you'll be shocked. Maybe you won't be.
Maybe you'll be throwing
agree.
your popcorn at the screen as we say some of these things.
I don't know. So come on
ready.
out for the season finale of season 2. Stay tuned for deep dives. Thank you so much for joining. Let us know your comments below, and have a great rest of your week. Bye, you guys.
Bye, everyone.